He passed away here at this very scene, and we're just here, to talk about his life, remember his life, and acknowledge the movement and the accountability that Justice for Mubarak is looking for. So thank you for that. To start it off, I'm gonna have a moment of silence for my brother's life lost. We're gonna have a moment of silence. Thank you. I'm Marianne. Mubarak was my brother. It is good to see so many gathered here in the embrace of community and remembrance of my brother Mubarak. He would have been 21 on June 24th. Our family of 5 would have celebrated at the Cheesecake Factory per usual. The waiters would come out singing happy birthday and Mubarak would look away flustered. We'd laugh. But that would be the case this year, or all the years to come, because of the brutal way in which my brother's life was taken on January 15th by State Trooper Brian North. Because of him, I won't get to see my brother graduate from college, to hear him say, "Yo, Mariam, when we going to Europe, you gotta take me to Spain." I won't get to hear his laughter fill the room, or him tease me for being too uptight sometimes. Relax, Mariam. I won't get to see where his ambitions would have taken him, because I'm 100% confident his dreams to pursue international business would have been seen through. He would have found him a beautiful, significant other that he cared so deeply for, and been blessed with so many children, so many caring children, because he was the most caring, the most patient, and the most family-oriented gentleman. We all know the real justice would be Mubarak alive to see all those things through, for him to be here today to celebrate his own birthday. But unfortunately, that was taken away from him, which leaves my family and I having to pursue the next best thing, a pursuit of some semblance of justice. We want State Attorney Michael Gaylor to release a verdict that clearly points the finger at a murderer and holds him accountable. This murderer being State Trooper Brian North. Say his name, Brian North.
Brian North!
Our efforts consist of getting him fired, charged, and convicted. He stole from us. He stole from all of us. An entire life, 7 gunshots, right where we stand. It gives me chills to this day. Another human taking the life of another human within seconds. No regard for their emotions, the family that they have, who they are as a person. Within seconds, Brian North pulled the trigger 7 times. The energy that requires, the hatred that requires to steal another human life, it's wicked, it's cold, and it's inhumane. Just recently, we witnessed accountability take place with George Floyd's murderer, given 22.5 years. And everyone rejoiced over the fact that the white man who executed a black man in public was finally convicted. It was a sad day, honestly. So sad to me that we had to cheer in victory at what was clearly the only outcome. But our system is so broken that people were expecting the worst. We were expecting him to get away free. People were ready to riot. How sad, America. How demoralizing it is that Black, Indigenous, and people of color are always on guard and always expecting the worst. Shame on you, America, and shame on you, Connecticut. Governor Lamont, you posted immediately on your Twitter praising the verdict of George Floyd's murder that George Floyd's murderer received. But how about the murderers right here in Connecticut, in our backyards? We want answers. We want accountability. this justice you spoke of in your video, Governor. We are waiting to see the same dedication for these senseless killings taking place in Connecticut by the forces you claim are here to protect us. This epidemic of police violence in Connecticut is affecting our community and tearing apart families. The only real justice would have been to have my brother alive today, to have Jason alive today, to have Stephen alive today, and too many others to count. Where is the accountability for families in Connecticut? I don't want any other family to go through this pain. This is the result of a clear fault in a system that was never made for us, but against us. We need your help. We need your voice. Please continue to be with us physically and on the platforms. We are active on @JusticeForMubarak on Instagram and post action items. We have a recent action item post that expresses how, starting tomorrow, please call Michael Gaylor's office. All the information is on the post, even a suggested script. Call his office and use that script to either leave a message with a receptionist or a voicemail. We must apply pressure. We must make them being the government, them being Connecticut, make them know that this is unacceptable and that Mubarak's life mattered, and we will never stop chanting that. Say his name, Mubarak Soulemane.
Mubarak Soulemane.
Mubarak Soulemane.
Mubarak Soulemane.
Thank you.
I'd like to call up a good activist and a friend to the family, Stanley Heller. Thank you.
Thank you. My name's Stanley Heller. I lived in West Haven, this city, for 42 years. I taught in the high school and the middle school for 40 years. Before I start, I just want to give a little acknowledgement to someone who would have been here but for a family problem. Her name is Carol Brown, and she led the fight for civil rights, as we called it, Black Lives Matter, as it's called now, for decades in this town as head of the West Haven Black Coalition. So perhaps we can have a round of applause, make some noise. We'll show this video to Carol Brown. All right. Let me explain to you what happened on January 15th in 3 sentences. Troopers and police surrounded a black youth with their cars. He did not instantly obey them. They shot him dead. That sums up the whole matter. The whole matter that they've been investigating for 17 long months. In Minneapolis, when Chauvin choked our brother, almost immediately the mayor of that city called for arrests and firings. But here in West Haven, Connecticut, we have not heard a single official from this town call for even the firing of Trooper North. About a year ago, on July 5th, there was a peaceful rally up to the West Haven police station protesting about Mubarak Soulemane. The rally was over. People went back to their cars, marched in the street, and then out of nowhere, a woman drove into the marchers, and those who weren't able to get out of the way were hit slightly by her. Obviously, understandably, the marchers wanted to make sure she stopped. The police came. Lots of police came, not just West Haven, but from Milford and other communities. And the police brought out dogs. And they took the woman home, they escorted her, and to the marchers, they terrified with the dogs, and they arrested some of them. This is West Haven for you. We have a print newspaper in West Haven called The Voice. I don't know, but I don't think they've ever covered the killing of Mubarak Soulemane or any of the protest rallies. And they certainly didn't mention the discovery by Hartford Current reporter Zach Murdoch, who wrote that it was a West Haven police officer who smashed in the passenger side window. So West Haven police were not just looking on when Mubarak was killed. I started an online news site called the West Haven Call, in large part to talk about the killing of Mubarak Soulemane. You can see it at westhavencall.com. After I talk, I'll go among you with a clipboard, and maybe some of you who'd like to be a volunteer as a writer or a photographer or a reviewer could help us out on this enterprise, the West Haven Call. It should be mentioned that a few years ago, West Haven paid $3 million because of improper police activity. And it will likely pay lots more money for its part in this incident in which Mubarak was killed. That money could be better spent, of course, on the beaches, on schools, or to reopen the library in the poorer part of town that was closed some time ago. One wonders why West Haven, with its schools mostly minority, which has officially declared racism to be a public health crisis, has politicians who don't speak up about the issue of police brutality. My answer is that the police is dominated by police thinking. After all, the biggest employer is the University of New Haven, which is famed for its police training program and its Henry C. Lee Forensic Institute. Ron Quagliani is the head of the city council. He was chief of police in West Haven for 5 years, until 2009. And then he went to UNH as Associate Vice President of Public Safety. That means he's in charge of the UNH police force. Do you know that West Haven has a Blue Lives Matter flag outside its public works garage on Collis Street? No boos for that? Do you know that they have a Blue Lives Matter flag at a public building in West Haven? Do you understand what that flag means? It means blacks are wrong to think or to talk about mistreatment. The Blue Lives Matter flag means the real victims are the police. And that's a flag on an official West Haven building. It's no wonder in a town dominated by police thinking that the mayor and town officials are okay with the police demanding instant obedience. It's no surprise that politicians are willing to express sympathy and send you their thoughts and prayers and nothing else. That's got to change. Are you with me? That's got to change. I'm going to end now by leading you with 3 chants. First one, politicians, break your silence. Politicians, break your silence. Politicians, break your silence. Politicians, break your silence. The second one, Governor Lamont, fire Trooper North. 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 And finally, justice for Mubarak. Justice for Mubarak. Justice for Mubarak. Justice for Mubarak. Thank you.
Jason Negron was 15 years old when he was killed by police officer James Boulay from Bridgeport, Connecticut. Ever since then, justice for Jason, including my good friend here, Talia and Vicky, who is running for City Council. We will check her out later. But Justice for Jason has been fighting relentlessly to get Officer James Boulay held accountable for the murder of Jason Negron, and it has not happened for over 4 years. I urge you to look at their Facebook and their Instagram under Justice for Jason so that you can also get involved in their fight. Justice for Stephen Barrier happened back in 2019 in Stamford, Connecticut. Stephen Barrier was killed by a group of Stamford police officers after his family called for mental health help. Since then, the government of the city has gaslighted his family and treated his mother terribly. Justice for Stephen Barrier is currently working as hard as they can to fight for the justice that they deserve, and I also urge you to check their Facebook and their Instagram. Before I begin today, I want to start with a land acknowledgement. West Haven, Connecticut falls under the land that once belonged to the Wappinger and Paugussett tribes of Connecticut. The Golden Hill Paugussett tribe is one of our only recognized tribes left in the state of Connecticut, and I hope you also search up their Facebook page today. 1,333 indigenous children, 482 people killed by police, and 29 transgender lives this year. This is an example. Turtle Island has been here since 14,000+ years ago, with its people living here and caring for its life. Since then, humanity has devolved into a state of hate and disconnection. We have a choice coming that each of us has to make as a collective. We can only be strong when we are united, and we cannot become united unless we are intersectional. We stand with Colombia today, we stand with Palestine today, we stand with the Uyghurs today, and we stand with the indigenous in Brazil and in Canada. We stand against all kinds of oppression towards the marginalized, and we will not ever be silent. Our communities are in extreme pain right now, from the news of residential schools to police shootings to poverty to everything. We are all grasping for ways to keep living above the waves. Today I want to give you hope. Regardless of the pain and the trauma that I have experienced during my time in activism, I have met so many people who have changed my outlook. People who drove themselves into the ground, fighting for justice, refusing to ever give up, no matter how slim that light might be. Walking alongside these people lifted me up, allowing me to believe it was possible to fight for a new way to live. It is. I cannot tell you how realistic it is. We have already built smaller communities within our friend groups that are inclusive. We've built communities online that have found new ways to use tech to help the disabled. We have been making revolutionary steps in our own spaces without even realizing it. Stan told us the story of what happened to Mubarak today, and it's too painful to repeat it. But where we are standing is where he lost his life. They shot him 7 times. When a broken record keeps playing, it feels like there's no way to put it back together, and that's exactly what this feels like. The same story over and over again, only a different name and a different face. I've said it before and I've said it again, I'll say it again. We can live without police. We have, and we can do it again. Police were never here to protect anyone other than the whites. Built from slave patrol, built from day and night watches, notoriously corrupt sexual assaulters, slave owners. That is what the thin blue line represents, and that is what this United States of America represents. Here's a slice of the Declaration of Independence for more example. He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. Or we can use this quote: the rate at which black Americans are killed by police is more than twice as high as the rate for white Americans. Or even this one: most killings by police begin with traffic stops, mental health checks, domestic disturbances, or reported low-level offenses. Or, for good measure, 98.3% of killings by police between 2013 and 2020 did not result in a conviction. When you have merciless Indian savages in your Declaration of Independence, that speaks truthfully to this government's intentions. There is no other answer to end senseless killings other than abolition. But we do not talk about that enough. What is it? What happens? I'll tell you. When we change that path of funding, it goes from police to mental health care and health care, veteran services such as ending homelessness, PTSD support, prosthetic support, mental support, education, such as bringing in therapists for children and not school resource officers, expanding curriculums, making it inclusive, and fixing the disparities between funded and underfunded schools. Environmental protection, such as reviving endangered species, working on maintaining the ecosystem, and switching to better energy. Youth services, let kids get involved in more sports, build areas for kids, fix up skate parks. Houseless support, affordable housing, mental health services, upgrading rehabs and upgrading shelters. And then of course, rehab centers. Instead of hating all of the addicts in the world, bring them back into the community and save lives. And so much more. We are strong united. We cannot allow homophobia, Islamophobia, transphobia, racism, and sexism, because all of these issues have something in common, as do all of us. The enemy, which is our current state of government. Today we are celebrating Mubarak's birthday and his life. But I ask all of you to sit down tonight and look up this movement. Talk to an abolitionist. Read an abolitionist's book. Don't get pulled into activism that doesn't fight for all. You are not machines. You are people. Thank you.
It's Ariane. Okay. Hi everybody, my name is Victoria. I'm a member of Justice for Jason and Grown out in Bridgeport. And I just wanted to really quickly speak on what we're doing out in Bridgeport as far as abolition is concerned, to speak to what Kara was just talking about with building new systems of public safety. And I just want to reiterate to speak to what Kara was saying about how abolition is really about building, and it's really about safety for all people. And change happens over time, and we need to start now building new systems. So out in Bridgeport, we're trying to put together integrated crisis intervention teams who would be led by qualified community members to respond to non-violent mental health calls instead of the police. It would also provide jobs for people in the east end of Bridgeport. And there are places in the country that are already doing this. So there's Cahoots, I think they're in Oregon, and then there's Star out in Denver. But we don't need to remake the wheel. We can bring these systems here to Connecticut. I study in school public health, health equity, urban affairs, and I also specialize in mental health care. I actually went to the same school as Mubarak. I went to Gateway Community College at the same time as him. And I just did a big project through the Honor Society to refund our wellness center because we didn't have a single licensed mental health counselor left. So mental health is health. I'm just out here to advocate for that and let you know that the same type of systems we're building in Bridgeport, we also need them here in West Haven. We need them everywhere in all communities. And justice for Mubarak.
Justice for Mubarak.
Thank you so much.
My name is Justin Farmer. I'm a city councilor in Hampden. I've been out to West Haven multiple times, right? And I think the thing that saddens me most is that, like Mubarak, I am a black man, and I happen to have a neurological disorder, right? Different, but struggling with my own health, right? And there are times where there is what people would see as irregular and not normal can be a death sentence, right? But we know we don't need something like that. It could be something as simple as having a $20 bill. It could be something as simple as getting Skittles. It could be something like getting in a car accident and daring to ask for help. But I want to focus on the culture of West Haven and then zoom out to the culture of Connecticut. Mubarak was a Muslim man who suffered from mental illness, who was a great student, a great friend, a great advocate. And he was shot and killed with 7 pulls of a trigger by the state police. There was a Turkish sister who was killed several years ago as she was abused by her husband, and she had reached out to the police department and begged and asked for help. And instead, this police department, the West Haven Police Department, spent their time mocking her name, mocking her culture, and she was killed. And you had the city say $3 million is a good settlement, that this woman and her children will go without her. You have the fact that the police are trained in such a way to see us as combatants. Right here in West Haven. And then last year we had the West Haven police allow someone to hit people with a car. After we all watched Heather here die, the West Haven police just wrote it off. But I think the thing that really bothers me is as across this state we talk about racism as a public health crisis, as we talk about the need for public health, that the governor and our elected leaders can talk about everything that happens everywhere else, but they can't talk about what's happening here.
That's right.
So to try to stay in the spirit of being bold yet brief, I'm tired for y'all, I'm tired with y'all, but I think the thing that really frustrates me is that I can't guarantee protection for myself. The other day I was just in normal clothes, just riding around in town, and an officer stopped me and said, "Are you Justin Farmer? I know you hate police," and trying to appease to me and not understand on the day that we are talking about charging Derek Chauvin, that to stop a black man from where he needs to go, to appease your guilt in a violent system, this is not about hate for you. This is not about hate for someone else. This is about a system of oppression. As my good state representative always says, I'm tired, right? I'm tired of being underprotected and over-policed. So, yes, I say abolition, right? But that's talking about building the community. That's this. It's having people come out. It's having people check on people, right? Mubarak had friends check on him, right? People talked to him that day, right? And he was on his way to safety. And because the police department refused to communicate, refused to take things seriously, and because they were more concerned with policing than public safety, that is why we are here. So, I want justice for Mubi. I want justice for us. I want justice in the state of Connecticut. Justice for Mubi. Justice for Mubi.
Justice for Mubi!
Justice for Mubi.
Justice for Mubi!
Justice for Mubi.
Justice for Mubi!
That is why we are here.
All right.
No justice,
No peace!
no justice,
No peace!
no racist,
Police!
no racist.
Police!
Thank you. Thank you, Justin, for your speech. God bless you.
State Representative Robin Porter. I represent the 94th District, Hampden and New Haven. My first time being out here. And I'm so sick of these vigils. I'm so sick of the killing. You know, we're putting laws on the books to address this, but what I really want is the people in the community, elected officials, hold us accountable. You know, because the laws don't stop this from happening. But it does guarantee lawful and legal recourse when it happens. And it's actions such as these and so much more that really need to happen on a greater amplification. And I'm not saying that this is not enough, but this is not enough. We have so much more work to do. To be intentionally and maliciously targeted, to be murdered and killed. And we know that this happens to us specifically. I'm tired of watching videos and news reportings where white folks are wielding guns and knives and shooting at cops and getting taken away without a scratch. Being taken to Burger King to get something to eat and being put on with bulletproof vests to protect them, the ones who have caused detrimental harm to black bodies, to brown bodies, to indigenous bodies. And it's just time for America to stand in their truth, because this is exactly who the hell we are. And it's who we've always been. It's time for a change. But we don't get to change anything until we admit there is a problem that is rooted and grounded in racism, in hate, and in pure evil. That is what we're dealing with. So it's time not to just call it out. It's time to root it, pluck it out, so that it cannot exist anymore. And what I will say to you, for everybody that don't want to be politically involved, that is where the power is, right? So don't tell me you don't care about politics, you hate politics. I want to find some people who want to run for office. I want to find the people in crowds like this that are interested in being authentic voices and are not afraid to share their lived experience with the other folks with power, because that's where the buck stops. And I want you to understand this. Power is not given, it is taken. And it's time that the people, right, because that's the people's house, it's the people's business, and the people need to be present.
Okay.
Their voices need to be heard. Those that have been oppressed, right, brutalized. And we're talking not just physically. I'm exhausted doing the work I do, fighting this wicked system. I'm exhausted, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally drained. But I'm here to tell you, as long as there's breath and I'm breathing, I'm fighting the good fight.
Okay.
Mubarak, Jason Negron, I was in Bridgeport. All the others, too many names to call, will never be forgotten. Never. We will continue to do this, meet in the streets, but we're going to take this from the streets to the city hall, to the state house, to the White House. We're going to show up and we're going to show out. And we're not talking violence, because we know when we gather, it is non-violent. The violence is inflicted on the peaceful protesters. It's time for that to stop. It's time for that to stop. And shame on West Haven for not doing anything about a woman who took her vehicle and brought harm to innocent people peacefully protested. Shame on West Haven PD. That's what I'll say out loud. It's time for us to have real justice, and this feel-good fabrication of, declaring racism as a public issue. That ain't good enough, because that's just words. Words on paper. We need for it to be more than that. We need for it to be about the business of doing something, not saying something. And we've seen it over and over again. This has been going on for centuries, y'all. Centuries. So what I say is, what are we gonna do different? How do we elevate this movement, right, to the next level? Because where we've been meeting has not gotten us where we need to be. So I want us to think about that. What is it that we need to be doing different so that we can get different results? And my heart and soul goes out to you and your family. I'm a mother and a grandmother, a son and a grandson. And it gives me chills standing here because I know it could be my babies that we're out here for, easily. It could be me we're out here for. And only because of the color of our skin. Yeah. It's so much more I could say, but I'm just thankful that you all showed up today, that you're continuing to support this family, this cause, this movement, and we will not stop until there is justice, not just for Soulemane, but for all of the ones who went before him and unfortunately the ones that have come behind him. This must end, it must stop. But I want us to remember how to love on each other and to be there for each other, especially during these times and these seasons of pain, grief, and mourning. But let's take that pain and let's turn it into power. And let's take that power and empower one another, because together we win. Let's operate as a collective. Let's stop being divided, people. People of color, I don't care where you come from and what language you speak. We're all sisters and brothers, and we need to start acting like it. We are a royal priesthood. Let's act like it. Thank you, and God bless you.
Amen.
A special shout out to the sponsors. Justice for Jason, who couldn't make it tonight. Justice for Stephen Barrier. Black Lives Matter National. Promoting Enduring Peace. Jewish Voice for Peace, New Haven. Black Alliance for Just Immigration. West Haven Black Coalition. Democratic Socialists of America, Afro Socialist, and Socialists of Colored Caucus, and a thanks to the Struggle Video News for its constant coverage. Same goes for everyone who has made it out tonight and has spoken and has just brought your energy to this space. Thank you for standing beside us. It means a lot to us, and it doesn't go unnoticed. Thank you, guys.